The goal is not to be better than someone else, but rather be better than what we used to be. Greetings of the day, everyone. I am privileged to welcome you all to the third session of Orange City Literature Festival, organized by the SGR Knowledge Foundation in association with GH Raisoni University, powered by Raisoni Group of Institutions. I am Mustafa Juzer, delighted and enlightened to be your anchor for today's session, that is, Telling Short Tales by Ms. Delshad Karanjia, in conversation with Ms. Drishti Sharma. A first time author, Ms. Delshad Karanjia has worked as a journalist for over 4 decades across several continents, beginning with the Times Group in Mumbai. In the United Kingdom, she freelanced as a copy editor with the Daily Telegraph, Sunday Times, and BBC publications, as a reporter, newsreader for BBC local radio, as a researcher, producer for the Channel 4 network. In the United States, she worked as a copy editor at the Houston Chronicle and subsequently as a writer, editor for the oil company in Saudi Aramco in Saudi Arabia. Now settled in Pune, she continues to teach, write, and edit. Teaching a horse to sing. Tales of Uncommon Sense from India and Elsewhere by Dilshad Karanjia. Stories about Akbar and Birbal, Krishna Deva Raya and Tenali Raman, Vikram and Vetal, and Mullah Nasruddin that will keep you entertained from the first to the last page. It's an honor to have you with us, Miss Dilshad Karanjia. And this gets even more delightful as we have Miss Drishti Sharma, who will be in conversation with her as her moderator. Now, Miss Drishti Sharma is an aspiring journalist presently studying at the Asian College of Journalism. She has done her graduation from Bengaluru and worked with various media houses like TV9, CNN IBN, Times of India, and ABP News. She's currently breaking the news on her Instagram platform. Besides this, she loves to listen people's stories about their dreams and their struggles and how they overcome them. She chose journalism because she feels there are things that people need to know about before forming an opinion. Unbiased reporting is one of the key factors and things that our country lacks right now. A pen can change a person and a country. Besides this, she's a Rajma Chawal fan and an animal enthusiast. She wants to change the world and put an end to starvation. What an amazing personalities we have today with us over here. I once again welcome Miss Dilshad Karanjia and I welcome Miss Drishti Sharma, ma'am. And also, before we move ahead, I would like to take a moment and acknowledge the support of Aleph Publications, as their association has been really valuable to the Orange City Literature Festival. Now, my dear audience, you are about to experience a conversation between two very dynamic individuals. So, without skipping a beat, I humbly invite Miss Drishti Sharma to lead us ahead. Over to you, Miss Drishti Sharma.
Thank you so much, Mustafa, for such kind words. I'm extremely excited to have Delshad ma'am over here. She's a senior journalist and I am a budding journalist. So I'm sure we all have a lot of things to, look ahead to. So without wasting much time, Delshad ma'am, first of all, why did you feel the necessity to go for short tales instead of writing a whole novel just like every other author does?
Thank you, Drishti, for the question, and thank you, Mustafa, for your kind introduction. Well, this project actually fell into my lap. I have been editing with Aleph Book Company for several years after I officially retired, but I continue to be active as an editor and also as a journalist covering events for certain magazines, Pune-based events for certain magazines. It was actually my commissioning editor, Inla Ozukam, who suggested that I tackle this project of writing, rewriting or retelling 50 short stories, mainly Mullah Nasruddin, Akbar and Birbal, Vikram and the Vampire, that kind of thing. So it started off as a project based solely on these three, very well-known characters in fiction. And it suddenly burgeoned into 150 stories from around the world. Most of the stories are from India, of course. But then, of course, we have Mullah Nasruddin, who is, claimed by several countries from Afghanistan to, to Turkey. And the book is divided into three sections. Approximately 50 stories in each section, starting off with Mullah Nasruddin, who is the most senior of those characters, then moving on to Akbar and Birbal, and then general stories and fables from all over the world, ranging from America, United Kingdom, Europe, Middle East, India, and Far East. So it really is a sort of global selection. And I enjoy the short story format, Drishti, for the simple reason that it's, in some ways, these are all short stories to begin with. All the stories that I was retelling have not been actually big novels that I have condensed into short stories. Stories have been around from time immemorial, as you know. And before people started writing and putting books into a, one consolidated form, I'm sure that they were by rote telling stories to each other, so that they learnt the stories by heart, and then they would recite them and tell them to their children, or or whoever. So short stories have always been with us. They've probably been around longer than the novel. So I think it was just the natural format for me.
Okay, that makes sense. And that leads me to the next question. Your first book of short stories just published. How did that come along? And also, along with that, I really want to know your experience, kind of like behind the scenes. What did you go through while you were writing those short stories? Did you have any anxiety? What was the excitement? What was there in your mind? How much time did you take to write all these stories?
Well, I was commissioned in January of 2019 with a deadline of, handing in the stories by December. And I'm proud to say as a journalist that I've never ever missed a deadline. So, of course, I stuck to that deadline. And then we had all kinds of problems, as you well know, the pandemic and a lot of delays. And in many ways, the pandemic actually was a boon for me, because it gave me time to rethink. I had not looked at those stories for several months, thinking that they are being edited and looked at by Aleph. And, when you start rethinking, you say, maybe I could change this, maybe I could change that. Believe me, while you're writing, you lose sleep. Because the ideas just keep whirring in your head. They keep going round and round, and you think, should I say this? Should I say that? I have to retell, not stick with the same ending. So imagine Akbar and Birbal. Everybody knows those stories. And here is the challenge to give it that slight twist that, maybe no one else has thought of or has done before. So it is an extremely taxing task. Most difficult is to choose which stories to leave out. Because stories, when I Googled wit and wisdom, which was the basic, that was what Aleph wanted, stories of wit and wisdom, something that told a story, something that, would teach someone, have a moral or a lesson. 14 million, if you Google, 14 million stories come up on Google. So you can imagine the amount of wit and wisdom out there. And, that I had to whittle down to 150 stories.
Okay, now my next question would be, what are the main characters in your story? And out of them, which one is your favorite, your personal favorite?
Oh, uh, I think that's a tough one. I think Mullah Nasruddin certainly would be my favorite because he had such a wonderful take on life, and people, we just keep adding to the stories about him. You can make something up, and I think in that sense I found him really, I enjoyed that section the most. Also because many of the stories I was not really familiar with. I knew a few stories, from the Osho. Osho was also Rajneesh used to sort of tell a lot of Nasruddin's stories when he was giving discourses, and so you hear random one story here, one story there, but then to find this absolutely, all over the world, from America to people are writing and adding to his to the collection. I found that really the most interesting.
You mentioned that Mullah Nasruddin was your favorite character because of the take of how he takes life. What would be your definition for how would you describe your life as? What is your perspective towards life?
About Mullah Nasruddin, sorry, I didn't hear the last bit.
What is your perspective about life?
About life. Oh, yeah, I take it as it comes. I think a lot of things have fallen into my, literally fallen into my lap. I've never really wanted to write a book. I was approached to do it. I've been very lucky with the jobs I've done. I've solid and very, very good background. I started as a trainee with the Times of India in Bombay in 1977. Had a wonderful news editor who taught me a lot when I worked on the evening news for 9 years. And I think that was the basic grounding that enabled a person with an Indian education and an Indian background to go abroad and to correct the work of native speakers, to correct or rewrite or to amend or, and that I think was incredible. I also have to thank my parents, who are also both journalists and writers. For the books that they brought into the house. I think for anyone aspiring to be a journalist and to be a good writer, you have to be a good reader first.
Correct.
You
Correct.
have to read anything that comes your way.
That's
And
true.
I've been really very lucky, also getting a break in the United States. UK was, of course, very, very simple because there was radio, there was television, and there were newspapers. Once you proved that you could do the job and write a clever headline, then the doors just opened up.
That's true. Now, this question is from a journalistic point of view. Do you think that the attention span of the readers have become extremely less, and did that lead you to write short stories and not a novel?
That actually, Drishti, is the whole point of why I chose this topic, telling short tales, because you do any research, go onto the internet, research, put in short stories, and you will find several items coming up saying short stories are no longer that popular, short stories are out of style. Novels, as you know, get all the credit, all the literary acclaim, plus all the accolades, the prizes, mainly for novels. It's actually quite a contradiction, because in this day and age where we want a quick fix for everything, we swipe left and swipe right. You're not interested if somebody takes too long to get to the point.
Yes,
I'm
absolutely.
surprised then that short stories are not as popular as they once were. This came as a huge surprise. But now look at the way things are changing. A short story, supposing I had written a 25-page story about Mullah Nasruddin, I would have had to get it published myself, printed, bound, proofread, etc., and then distributed. Who is going to do that? What about the expense? Now, if I write a 25-page story, I can put it online. Kindle will probably sell it as a small Kindle single or as an ebook. And, the whole world is opened up for writers. So it's one of those things. I mean, I really can't explain why, short stories are not as popular as they should be. But I like to think of it, there's an American writer, very famous short story writer called, let me get her name right, Laurie Moore. very well known. Sometimes her stories are just 2 paragraphs.
Okay.
And she says that a short story is like a love affair and a novel is like a marriage, with all the, that.
Yeah.
She also says that a short story is like a photograph. A novel is like a film. And when I read that, I thought to myself, maybe she has a point, maybe she doesn't. And then I thought, why don't I define it as I'd say that, everybody wants to have a wholesome 3-course meal occasionally, and you're welcome to it. That's your novel, spread leisurely across several hours or several days. And why not? Sometimes you want a healthy snack, so why not just go to a short story?
Correct. And coming like after the pandemic, I feel especially youngsters, like people of my age, they have been, losing out patience. They want everything quick on their like fingertips.
Correct. It's the quick fix. Everyone is looking for the quick fix. So maybe we will see a comeback of the short story. But just in terms of producing one short story, the production process, the paper, the printing, the binding, the, getting it all done and selling a 25, that I think is the difficulty for writers.
Writers. That's true. So, ma'am, another question. Did your experience as a copywriter in several like huge media houses help you in compiling the book?
As a copywriter is a slightly different thing from what I did. I'm actually a copy editor, what in India we call a sub-editor. You see, so a report comes in from somewhere, and here it's a straightforward thing where you just sort of correct it and check the spellings and standardize it to your house style. Abroad, there would be a feed from Reuters. There would be a feed from AFP. You have to consolidate and compile all of that. So in a sense, I was doing much the same thing here with the book, where bringing in stuff from all over the place, choosing to, that these are the 50 that I'll pick for Mullah Nasruddin. These are the 40 that I'll pick for Akbar. These are the others, So that, yes, in a sense, it does. It helps you to weed out unnecessary words, Every time a reporter can be given a word count of 300, the report will come in at 350 words. Where are those 50 words going to fit if there is no room? So you have to start cutting back, cut out the fluff, cut out the adjectives, leave in the verbs, leave in the action, but cut out the unnecessary detail. That's, I think, a skill that has really stood me in good stead while working on this book.
Coming to that, after like, do you think that there is I'm sure there is a difference between writing short stories and telling a report. So did you face any problem in how, like all these years you have been rewriting a report, you've been writing reports.
Yes.
So was it difficult for you to like shift to short stories, because storytelling itself is like it's like a huge process. It's difficult. Not everybody can do that. So did you face any problem because of that?
Not really, because I think the main thing was to keep them short, to stick to the definitional characters. I think there's only one story in the book that stretches over 3 pages, three and a half pages. So all of the rest, some of them are so short, they're only a few paragraphs, So no, given my experience, even the main thing is to grab the reader's attention right at the start, which you also do with your report. You're writing a report, the important thing has to come in the first paragraph. You cannot bury it in the 5th or 6th paragraph down there, because no one has the patience to get to that, to read until then. So you bring them in, you pull your reader in. And Drishti, we've all had essay writing classes in school, where you were taught there has to be a clear-cut beginning, a middle, and an end, So that's the format that I followed for all of them, really. And it wasn't really that difficult.
Also, do you think that writing short novels is easier than writing a whole novel?
That's a question that has been debated on the internet. If you go on to if you Google, which is more difficult, you will be surprised that writing the short story, most writers find it difficult to write short stories.
Yeah, because like when you're writing a novel, you're telling one whole story, you're explaining everything. But short stories, you need to come up with several things.
Absolutely. And it has to be to the point. Every word counts. You cannot waste time and space with, unnecessary fluff. It has to be to the point. I came across, while researching this, Drishti, I came across a story that apparently they have, no one knows who actually wrote this. I'm going to hold it up for you to read. It's 6 words. Just look at this. Can you read it?
For sale, baby shoes never worn.
Look at that. For sale, baby shoes never worn. 6 words. There's tragedy, there's mystery, there's agony. What happened to this baby? Well, I mean, that's all. That's a story there for you. It's absolutely amazing that people, and there are many people who've written 1 and 2 sentence stories.
That's true.
So I think, as I said, there should be no wasted words. The mantra for anyone who's writing a short story: no wasted words. The novelist has the freedom to write not just one plot. There are 15 subplots. You read any of the popular writers, you read Jeffrey Archer, you read John Grisham, tiny, tiny, tiny sections, different characters being introduced, different subplots coming into play. We don't have that luxury with a short story. It has to be to the point. You start, you pad it out a bit, and then you end it. That's it. It's as simple as that.
Correct. So you mean to say, like, the number of words is the main difference between a short story and a novel, correct?
Yes, it's the difference that makes all the difference, as I say. It has to be short, it has to be to the point. I think it determines not only the length of the story, how your plot unravels, have you captured the reader's interest, all of that. In some ways, I think it is easier. Avoid all the other subplots, avoid all the other complications, just get to the point. Which has been for 45 years. I've been doing that as a copy, as a sub-editor. So it was quite easy for me.
Okay, so would you actually agree that novels are more famous or, more read than short stories? Would you agree to that? What's your perspective?
Definitely. There's no doubt about that. Yes, I'd have to agree, obviously. But then also it's a matter of taste. As I said, sometimes you want a 3-course meal, sometimes you may just want a snack. For instance, if I were, when I take long flights, I don't like to take, or we are traveling somewhere, I don't try to take a novel with me. I try to take short stories, because your attention, you can read a short story, and then if you get diverted by something or the other, it doesn't matter. The novel requires your sustained interest, which sometimes is difficult. So it's a matter of choosing the novel or the book collection of short stories, depending on your need, or or depending on circumstances.
Because I honestly, like, even I have a very, short attention span, like very less. And I get distracted like this very easily. Like if something's happening, I everything, and so
Exactly.
I personally prefer, reading short stories, because I cannot complete a novel. It'll be like months or days. That book would be just right beside me, but I cannot pick it up and start reading again. So coming to the next question, do you think that short stories are going to make a comeback in the future? If you see the attention span of youngsters like me, do you think short stories are going to make a comeback again?
Short stories, I don't think need to make a comeback, because they've never ever really gone away. They've always been there, lurking on the on the bookshelf, sort of higher up. The novels will probably be right up there in front. Short stories will always be around, I think, especially now, Drishti, when I pointed out that we can now publish. If I write a short story that I think is very good, I can, you can sell it as a tiny little ebook or a Kindle single, and so the whole world is opened up. Publishing is opened up. You don't need to now get it printed and bound and then put on a bookshelf. No, You can now send out your short stories. Look at the amount of WhatsApp messages and jokes and all these things that are coming on. They drive you nuts because it is incessant, the flow of this. All these people are in essence writing short stories.
Is it, ma'am? So I'm extremely sorry. So yeah, we were talking about the comeback of short stories. Like, do you think it'll, make a future? Like, it'll
As,
be back.
well, I don't think that short stories need to make a comeback because they've never ever really gone away. We are all of us reading short stories every day. Somebody has something interesting to say. It's sent out as a WhatsApp message to one group who then make it viral. We're all reading short stories. The main thing is to read. I don't care whether people are reading a novel, War and Peace, or then reading just a 25-page story. The main thing is to get people reading, because it's very encouraging for authors to have their work read and appreciated.
Yes, but I also wanted to know, now a is there now a necessity to always publish it even though it's on Kindle? Do you think social media plays a huge role when it comes to short stories? Because you can just write a short story on Facebook and boom, everybody shares it like that, especially the youngsters. So do you
Yeah.
think that social media would play an essential role in short stories and making them viral?
Definitely making them popular and they all go viral. That I think is, of course, the role of social media. But the point is, does the author get any royalties? Does he get any payment? Does he get any recognition? That also is a factor. Many of these things are just anonymous. You never know who has written it because it forward. It has been forwarded by scores of people, and the original writer or author is seldom even named. So I think it all depends on I mean, if I had something to say that I wanted to, if I had a message that I wanted to spread to everyone, I would perhaps put it on Facebook, and then we don't care whether it goes viral or not. The point is that you want to share. But with a book like this and with stories like these, I don't think that can actually work. It has to be in part of a compilation, whether it's logically it's moving from, they're progressing in the stages. You see, my Akbar and Birbal stories begin with Birbal's first encounter with the emperor, and then how he gets into the court, how there's so much jealousy. So then he develops, he grows as a character in the telling of, the go on to him till the end. So I think that is a different.
So, going to my one of the last question, I would say, I decided to read some of the reviews of your book, what people had to say, and I found out that there's one thing common that in the reviews, people always spoke about their childhood and how the times were simpler back then.
Exactly.
So, my question to you is not exactly a question, but if you could rewind time, what is that one thing you would revive or relive again?
Mm,
Now, I'm sure that's kind of
yeah, it's a
question.
tough one. I mean, I would like to go back to the home that I grew up in Chowpatty in Bombay. The only thing I would change was that I was a very sickly child. So if some of those illnesses could be eliminated, it would have been a much happier time for me. But the irony is that it was during those illnesses that I read many of these stories that I have now retold in the book. So I remember from way back then, that's almost 60 years ago, the stories that I read and the times, those were really good times, carefree childhood where you're, have every comfort possible. I think that's certainly something that I would like to relive.
Okay. My last one would be, if there's one message, if you could give to the, budding authors, budding journalists, what would you give?
I would say keep at it, keep trying, keep trying, keep writing. Make it meaningful, avoid pretension to the extent possible. And if you have a story to tell, they say every human being has a novel within them, inside them. But everyone tries to write. But if you write, say, sort of a 400-page book about a life that is, it may not really be of interest to others. But for people who are driven and who have this this calling, I would call it, to write, I think express yourself. I mean, by all means, do it, and somewhere someone will read it, because now you can even post it on Facebook, or you can just put it send one PDF file to a friend who will then send it to another, and that's the way you will spread the word. Again, for me, the important thing is that keep people reading. Keep people reading. That's the important thing, And of course, if it's well written and if they're good stories and stories that are memorable and that you remember, nothing like it. But keep on reading.
Definitely. I think this is one advice everybody is going to stick to. And thank you so much. I think I had such a wonderful session with you. My mind has opened up so much, like having different perspective about novels and short stories. It was wonderful to, speak to. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Drishti, and Mustafa, thank you for your time. And let me know if there's anything else that you need from me. And good luck to both of you in your careers, especially you, Drishti. You're starting out in a great profession of journalism.
I think I'm gonna get in touch with you again and need a lot of advice because you have so much of experience. So I think I'm gonna bother you again with so many questions I have in mind about journalism.
It won't be a bother at all. Please feel free to contact me.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you.
Well, writing a story of your life, don't let anyone else hold your pen. Well, what an inspirational and informational conversation. I mean, this was an ocean of information, and we have just witnessed a drop of it. At the outset, I really thank Mrs. Delshad Karanjia and Ms. Drishti Kataria to grace us with your benign presence. We would wish to hear more of you, both of you, equally, and enlighten us once again. And for my massive dear audience, I'm sure after witnessing this conversation, you all are taking home an enriched version of yourselves as well, just as I am. Thank you so much for joining us today and granting us your precious time. Until I see you once again, this is Mustafa Juzer signing off.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.